Is it improving the use of technology by students? Is it creating work-life balance for staff? Is it the physical health and safety of students or improving WIAC results? Now, let's say I put in addressing COVID-19 learning loss. Then I can choose my second choice. Maybe it's improving the use of technology by students. Maybe then I want to ensure the physical health and safety of students. And on I can go until I rank all 6 of these. Of course, you're going to rank them based on whatever feels most important to you when you're creating your school development plan. And then I hit submit. Now let's go back to my results page. Amazing. Okay, you guys are doing a great job. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Oh no, that's me. So what we'll see down here in the corner are the number of people who followed the link, right? The link that we just popped into the chat. I'll pop it in again. And then ranked what feels most important to them to least important to them right now. If you have a question, ladies and gentlemen, may I please ask you to put it into the chat, as it will be very difficult to answer questions during the webinar in terms of having people share their questions out loud. So questions in the chat, please. And I'm going to give everyone a moment now, as I said, to really do this. If you're on a laptop, take out your mobile. Oh, fantastic. I love it when I see somebody else participate. This is a great tool, by the way, for any of you who do some online teaching and learning for your students. I'm going to give about 3 more minutes for additional results to come through. DG, I hope you're doing this too.
I'm right here.
Awesome.
I'm right here. Yeah, thank you.
I'm resharing the link again. So for those of you who are just joining us, we're doing a quick interactive icebreaker, ranking your priorities, rating your priorities when it comes to school development planning for this year. And we're looking for everyone to participate. So if there are 99 or so of you, I hope to see a number close to that down here in this corner. Right now we have 2, myself and one other fabulous person. If you have questions, just pop them into the chat. Okay, so that's a great question that we're being asked. We can go to that one a little bit later on, but I will make a note. But please, everyone, we'd love to see you use the Menti. You need to follow the link that we're putting in the chat and rank your school development plan goals. What are you focused on this year? Great. Okay, thank you, Mr. Sada. Most important, the physical health and well-being and safety of the student. So we're going to use Menti periodically throughout this brief workshop. In the interest of time, I'm going to go back to the slides, but please, the Menti link is in the chat, and I really want to encourage you to use that. Oh, good. We've got a few more responses coming in. I'll share it once more in the chat. So please do take time to put your responses into the Menti. And what we'll do is jump back to this in a little bit to take a look at. So let's go back then to the school development planning. It's really clear from what we saw that you are prioritizing health and safety, of course, in every year, right? And you're now at the beginning of the academic year. There's so many priorities that you could have. And it can feel quite overwhelming when it comes to being a school leader. So what we're going to do today, our objectives in this workshop, are around developing the skills required to write a school development plan, which include using available data, such as past external evaluations, setting an inspiring and also achievable school vision, generating SMART targets, creating an action plan, and building the capabilities of staff to carry out the required action. Doing this, we'll work through a couple of case studies, and we'll ask you, as the DG said, have your paper and pencil, be taking notes, and be coming up with your own ideas for your own school. If you're joining us as an OEQA officer, you can think about a school that you've recently visited. We do have a few ways of working. So one is we'll ask you to be present and to avoid distractions. The second is to participate. Use the chat for questions and constructive comments. And then the third is to really, really try to do the activities. You'll benefit much more from the workshop if you really engage with the tasks. So we're going to begin with the first item on our agenda, which is an introduction to school development planning. And DG, at this stage, I'll turn it over to you. Just let me know when you need me to advance the slide. Over to you, DG.
Hello, good morning again. I'm not sure if you all can see me. I was joining via audio before.
We can see you, DG.
Okay. Okay, good morning, everyone. I saw that there wasn't as much participation as I would have liked. So I'm hoping that we realize the importance of being present. So when I spoke before in the beginning about preparing for such a training as this, I also mentioned, apart from bringing a pen and a paper, the importance of being present as we go about this work that we are doing. Now, if we are expecting those that are working with, our teachers, if we're school leaders, and if we're expecting our schools as OEQA evaluators to really gain from what we are doing, it's very important that we first of all, we are prepared, number one. Number two, it's important that we recognize where people are. So this is the first webinar we're doing, and we know that some of you may be a bit shy. Fine, I will give you the benefit of the doubt. But it's important to know that if we are here, let's dig in. There's no point of using your data. There's no point of putting this time aside if we're not going to participate. Right? So that's one thing that I've learned so far from just being here in a few minutes, where we have, so many people online and very few people responding. So the approach of this training is kind of like a teach the trainer, right? So we're expecting you as school leaders to equip your schools, and we're expecting you as OEQA evaluators to equip schools also. So keep in mind that as you're trying to equip people, they won't always be forthcoming in participation. So that's important for you to know, so you know how to read your audience and you know what you need to do to prepare for them to participate even more. So I just wanted to mention that quickly. Okay, Christine, can you please remind me which slide we are on now? Is it the rationale?
Yes, DG, it's the rationale.
Okay. Okay, so the rationale for quality assurance in Lagos State. So we know there's Lagos and then there are the others, right? So Lagos is the most populous state in the country, and as a result, Nigeria is the most populous nation. But Lagos State is central to that population, and it's even evident when we're looking through the many private schools that we have within the state, juxtaposed with the public schools in the state. We know that public and private schools are working together as partners to ensure that all children are educated within the state. It is our responsibility to ensure that students receive a quality education. The mandate of the Office of Education Quality Assurance is to ensure that every child receives a quality education, and we do that primarily through monitoring, we do it through standardization, and we do it through evaluation. And where does something like this come in? It really comes in really trying to equip our stakeholders with all that they need to be successful. Next slide. Okay, so based on the federal evaluation framework, quality education can be achieved. So that's a good thing, okay? It's a good thing. It can be achieved through developing an excellence across the standards. Oftentimes, we know what makes a good education. We know it when we see the students. We know it when we walk into a good school that, yes, this school is offering quality education. But if we're honest about how that translates to what the teacher is supposed to do and what the school is supposed to do, we know that we need benchmarks. So that is why the standards are important in helping us to figure out, number one, what the goals are, what we need to achieve, and it really helps in helping us to figure it out how we are going to get there. Okay, so number one, we have the standard for the outcomes of learners. We have 1A, achievement and standards. We have 1B, learners' personal skills and participation. So if I were to judge the participation of you today, I don't know how well we would be doing. I just have 5 comments in the chat box, okay? Number 2, the quality of provision. Okay, quality of provision. So what does that mean? So 2A is the quality of teaching and learning. This is the biggest chunk of our education service delivery. Okay, it's the biggest chunk, the quality of teaching and learning. Notice that even though we say teaching and learning quite often, we need to think about what we expect students to do for learning and how we are expecting them to show that they've learned. It's not just in terms of the assessment, it's also in terms of the questions that they ask. It's also in terms of the way that they're able to synthesize information or create new findings as they go about their learning. I'll just run through the quality of the curriculum. For the most part, that's pretty much set, as we have the Nigerian curriculum, and then some people are offering either strictly foreign curricula, or in addition to the Nigerian curriculum, British or US or different curriculum. Then we have 2C, the quality of care, guidance, and safety. So this really hinges on the safeguarding, child protection law of the state. And then also, that's on a larger scale, right? That's on a larger scale. But what are the systems we have in place to ensure that children are safe, emotionally safe, physically safe, mentally safe, right? So even within a classroom, how does a teacher create a safe environment where students are comfortable asking questions that others may deem silly? Okay, what type of culture has the teacher created within that classroom? And then 2D, the quality of the learning environment. Yes, we can talk about the infrastructure, and as OEQA, we typically do focus on the basic infrastructure, but what does the classroom look like? Do we see evidence of student learning? Do we see books? Do we see resources? Are they in use? Are they just decorative in one space? Is it fit for purpose? Then standard number 3, the effectiveness of leadership and management. And this is where this professional development series really comes into play. How effective is the leadership of the school, the management of the school, even the teachers, right? Even the teachers, how empowered are they with the work that they are doing? Next slide. So as OEQA, as we are expecting standards, as we're setting standards and we're expecting our schools to adhere to these standards, we also need to have a standards-based quality assurance process, right? We need to make sure that we are also holding ourselves accountable to set standards that we are expecting you to show up for and to blow out of the water. So yeah, we know it's an ongoing process. It's not a one-off thing, right? Quality assurance is constantly ensuring that you are not that you're meeting standards or exceeding them, hopefully, but that you constantly know, you have a framework to know where you are, and you're able to pinpoint exactly where you need to get better. And this really has 4 major components, and each component is broken down into the 5 standards on the previous slide that we've talked about. So we have the school development plan, which is why we're here today. We have capacity building, also part of what we are modeling today, how we can build the capacity of our own evaluators as well as school leaders. OEQA evaluation, what does this look like in terms of the evaluation that we issue out to schools? And how are schools able to self-evaluate? How are you able to self-evaluate? And is there a huge discrepancy between what you see and what we see when we come into your school? Next slide. Christine, you may just have to let me know when it's time for you to jump in. So I'll just keep going.
It's fine. You're good for this.
I'm good. Okay.
But DG, if I may ask one of the questions that was raised,
Okay.
you might address on this slide, because one person asked at the beginning of the workshop, what is the difference between a school development plan and a school improvement plan? In my university or view of the world, it's basically the same thing, just different language, but I will turn that one over to you as you talk about the school development planning.
Okay, so school development plan and school improvement plan. I would say the school development plan is the baseline, right? So based on maybe based on your previous school year, based on the vision, mission of the school, this is where we want to be, right? But we know that as we go about that journey, things may change. As we go about that journey, we may decide that we want to be more of a humanities-based school. As we go about this journey, we may decide that we want our teachers to be more conversant in STEAM education or STEM education. So I feel like the school development plan is your standard, and the school improvement plan is how you continuously get better, and that the school improvement plan, as you have that, right, will then impact the development plan. But like you said, they are very closely intertwined. I just think that the school improvement plan are broken into smaller chunks, whereas a development plan is the larger place that we're going, but how we are going to get there in smaller chunks is the improvement plan. That's how I would address that question. Thank you for asking. That was a good question, by the way. So it seems like I'm looking at the chat. I haven't opened it, but it looks like we have more participation. So that's good. I haven't opened it to see the quality of our participation. Okay. So the development plan it's something that is done annually. So based on everything we've noticed, is our development plan, is it okay? Does it need to be tweaked? Does it need to be brought down? Does it need to be brought up? Okay, it's grounded in external evaluation, feedback, and data. So someone externally, in this case being the OEQA, some of you that have international accreditation, it could be those international bodies telling you this is where your school is against international best standards, right? And it's objective, and it is something that is not based on whether an evaluator likes you or not, right? So it's grounded in feedback. Feedback is very important. So the feedback that they're giving, in this case, the OEQA is giving the school and the teachers as to how they're doing, and ensuring that it's timely. That's another thing I would have added here for it to be impactful, is that feedback must be timely. And then data, right? So numbers don't lie, right? I guess they could, depending on how you're using them, but we're using data to reveal a larger picture, okay? So in addition to this, it's also reflective of the needs and realities of the school, which is what I've touched upon earlier on in the slide. Next slide, please.
Okay, so I'm going to actually jump in briefly on this side here. We're going to talk just a little bit about developing a school vision. Now, every school has a vision that's written down, but how much does that vision really guide what you do day in and day out? Is it something that the community can see in practice and in the decision-making of your school? So all development planning should be rooted in your vision. As we said earlier, at the beginning of any academic year, you can look ahead and think of 20, 30 or more things that you may want to improve on or change, but you really want to prioritize when it comes to the vision of your school. So I want you to think for a moment about your school's vision. Does it feel relevant to your context? Can you visualize what it would look like, sound like, and feel like if it was relevant in your context? So I want you to take a moment and just write down your school's vision on your paper where you're taking your notes. We're not going to use this video, but I will add the video links to the website lagoslearnstogether.com, or I should say we will add them. This is a video that does a beautiful job of walking through how you might craft a vision statement for your school. But you should think about your own vision statement right now based on the context of the past year. What's changed? What aspects of your vision need to be updated? You know, how have your priorities as a school potentially shifted? And let me give you one example. I noticed earlier that so many of you said that health and safety is critically important for your school. Has that increased over the past year, whether due to COVID or due to concerns about security? What does that mean for your school? So as I said, these videos will get shared on lagoslearnstogether.com, because if you think that your vision should be updated at this stage, it's a great time to refresh yourself on how to craft a relevant vision statement. Skip there. Here are a few examples of vision statements that we love. And I want you to look at these. There's those 3 of them here. And I want you to think about, let's call the top one, the second one too, and the bottom one, it says mission, but we'll go with it. There are three different ways of kind of describing this. We'll call the last one 3. And I want you to read through them and then just pop into the chat. Which one feels most relevant in your context? Which one feels most similar to your vision statement? And interestingly, you know, assessing a school's vision statement, is there a vision statement? Is it enacted? Is actually the #1 thing written under looking at the quality of leadership and management in the federal school evaluation framework. And looking at the 3 of these, I can see, for example, #3 talks about safety. It talks about respect. It talks about inclusion. Now, inclusion might be implied in the second one, but it's not explicitly stated. Whereas the first one talks about families, lifelong learning. Which one feels most like your own school's vision? And there's no right or wrong to this, right?
Absolutely.
No 2 schools will be the same. And I know, DG, you know, you and I have had extensive conversations about how a family chooses a school for their children, and what matters for one family might be a little bit different. Proprietors thinking when they open a school might be, you know, slightly different from one to the other.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, even when I think about the vision for the OEQA, you know, when we first came on board, it was initially a striving for education, you know, excellence. And I think for me, we were sort of talking through it. Oh, why are we striving? Shouldn't we say that, you know, we are expecting excellence in education? And as a result of that, you know, that had changed, you know. So really understanding, maybe because I'm an English teacher, you know, so understanding the power of words and really understanding how, you know, what it means when an organization is saying that they are striving for, you know, excellence in education, as opposed to it just being education excellence, right? As I'm reading this, you know, it's weird because I'm focusing on keywords step out to me. So I like the focus on children for the first one. So for me, it feels like that school, based on that, that's a vision, right? Is it vision, mission? Sometimes we get them confused.
Yeah.
Based on that #1, the focus is on the child. And we know that in quality education, we always do want to make sure that everything the school leaders are doing, the teachers are doing, at the end of the day, focuses on the child. So for a school to have the child embedded into the statement, I think it says a lot about the role that they expect children to play in the educational process.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think we'll all have slightly different views on this. Now, you brought up the controversy of all controversies, DG, which is mission versus vision. Now, we've got 3 words up here. We have goal, we have vision, we have mission. We're going to let that go for right now. Technically speaking, a vision is where you see the school in the world of worlds, right? In an ideal scenario, what is your school able to do? Your mission is more connected to the challenge that you're addressing. You know, higher order thinking skills, creating lifelong learners who can contribute to their nation and the world. The vision is more, you know, I suppose, if we're going to be technical about this, like what the school would look like or feel like day in and day out. All 3 of these, I think, do kind of address that. So we're not going to get too into the weeds with this. But we will share these slides, and there is a link, thehelpfulprofessor.com, that does provide some really good examples of school mission and vision statements. Now, 2 questions that Mr. Okunyemi brought up. One is, are there examples of school development plans for both primary and secondary school? Yes, absolutely. And again, we can share those on Lagos Learns Together. We'll make a tab for this workshop and share some examples. And then what's the importance of a school development plan? Well, we've addressed some of that, but I would say, you know, we can all think of the sculptor Michelangelo, right? And we can think about, or the painter, you know, we can think about having raw material. You can think about having a chunk of marble, right? Rodin creating the thinker. That's, you know, what you start with when you say, right, we're going to create a school. But it's that artist that decides what to chip away at that creates this vision. And so the vision allows you to kind of chip away to create the work of art that is your school. You've got the marble, you've got the chunk of marble. Now, what are you doing with it? What do you want that to be? And that's Rodin thinking of the thinker and chipping away at the marble. I sometimes speak in analogies and metaphors, but I do hope that one helps a bit. Now, again, I think in the interest of time, we're going to skip through this video, but this video shows students talking about the vision of their school. And at the end of the day, you would want, you know, whether it's a quality assurance officer or a parent, to be able to come into your school and ask an 8-year-old, what is the vision of this school? And for that 8-year-old to, in their own words, describe something that's connected to your actual vision. Because at the end of the day, it's the children, right, who should be able to experience this vision. We'll share the videos, as I mentioned, online. So now what we want to do is think about creating a baseline. This is your self-evaluation. Now we're going to jump back over to the Menti. So we want everyone to participate again. You've had a little bit of practice with this. Anyone who's new, we'll talk you through it again. But we've shared the standards. We want you to rank, just like you ranked your priorities for this year. If you were to think about the quality assurance standards, rate them from top to bottom. What are your strongest points? What are your areas for development? So with that said, let me jump over to the Menti. Okay, we had a few more responses, by the way. I think I have a few familiar names, by the way, in this group who I know Mentis. So we should definitely see, of the 146 of you, lots of responses.
Christine, are we going to go through any of the videos? I think it would be nice for people to see some of them.
Do you want to do the video?
The previous one, it could be anyone, but I think it would be just good for them to see that it is possible to, because, you know, this is a workshop, so we have to show what we are expecting them to do.
Okay.
So, I've taught Christine what means.
Best
in Nigerian
expression
context
ever. I use it now, even in my own home. My husband hears me say and he knows exactly what I mean now. All right, let me jump back to the video in that case.
Okay, thank you. I went to it, but I don't know if you probably have to just go to YouTube and just share your screen.
Can do, no problem. Hold on, let me go back to the right slide.
And the reason why, this is what I'm telling everyone now, for the participants, the reason why I also think it's important for us to show the video to you is because we want to model what we want you to do for your teachers, and we want to help teachers to model what we want them to do for students. So we know we don't want teachers to say, go back to the website and watch the video. We also know that it's important because students learn in different ways and different things appeal to them. So we've embedded this all here that you will all have access to, I believe, right, Ms. Christine?
Yes, DJ.
Everyone will have access to this later, so you don't have to create any of this. This is just a framework, and of course you can always add to it. But for the interest of time, this is the only one I will Yes.
Okay, so we're going to hear the children talking about their school's vision. Oops, hold on. I think I have to swap my share. Do bear with me for a moment. Oops, we're going to go to Grammarly ad. Sorry. This is the challenge, I would say, by the way, for any of you who may think about using videos in the classroom, is that when you show them, sometimes you do end up with a lot of lag.
Okay, so it doesn't always start when it's supposed to start, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, I think the volume. So there's a little bit of a delay. So this is good for you to also know and to have this in your planning, everyone, that if you're using multimedia, which is great, we encourage it, that sometimes there will be a delay. So just plan for it by letting your audience know. I'm not sure about the volume for some reason. Am I the only one?
So this is actually partially why I skipped over the video. One of the things that we've been coaching schools to do is to assign the videos to their students in advance of the lesson.
Okay, that's
which we didn't
good.
have the opportunity to do here for a few reasons, right? One is data and devices in the classroom, not always an option. And then the other reason is we want to think about that time together as golden time. Exactly. And we want to do the most interactive things. So exactly. If videos can be watched before, that's great. We are going to send this to you after. And because speaking of in-person golden time, we do actually have very limited time in this short workshop. Yes. And that's why, if it's okay with you, DJ, I would love to
yes,
go back
of course. I just wanted also for it to be a teachable moment for everyone also. Yes. So just like Ms. Christine said, it's wonderful to have videos embedded, but think through how people can watch videos before you are meeting with them, and you can give them a focus. You can tell them what jumped out at you. You can ask them just one question. So by the time they come, you all come back together. Even the people that don't normally participate will have something to participate with. Okay, so that was a teachable moment. Thank you.
Okay. Absolutely. It's changed, right? And I think that's the thing about education now, especially when you don't have devices in school, but children may have access to a device part of the time at home, perhaps a shared device with the family, even shared sometimes with a neighbor. Some of the stories that we've heard are really incredible in terms of device use. Having some flexibility in terms of access is something really key. And that's Absolutely. True at schools of all price points, actually. Okay, so we got 9 people out of 150 on the last one, but still.
Congratulations to our 9. We'll track you down.
I'm one of them. So
8.
That's so 8. But this is what we call breaking the internet. We want you to get comfortable, get a little messy, try something new. And interestingly, we can see, as we saw, use of technology is right up there at the top, but below the physical health and safety of students. Now, our next question to you is, we want you to rank which standards are most important in achieving your school's vision. So if your school's vision is, for example, focused on the inclusion of all learners, it might be that the quality of care, guidance, and safety is up at the top. Or if your focus is more on academic results, right, getting students into the best universities, and nothing right or wrong with any of these, they're all good. You might be more that the outcomes of learners are a bit higher. So which is the most important of these standards in achieving your school's vision? How will you share your opinions? This is the time for you to get in there and share your thoughts. You are going to follow the link that I'm popping into the chat.
Everyone get on.
Everyone do it. Now you're
get
already on a device. We know
get
that.
on to the Menti.
And for anyone who came in late, I have the option now of, I'll answer this as a parent, right? What am I looking for in terms of my own children? I like them to have good outcomes, but it's probably not the most important thing. Achievement and standards. I'm answering this as a mother, as I'm not a school proprietor or school leader.
Interesting.
Everything's important to me, though. I just want it all. I can't help it. But I want to see some variety when you're answering, probably more variety than I'm putting in here.
It would be interesting if there's a stark difference between what the quality assurance evaluators see and what the school leaders see. That would be very interesting.
Yeah. It would be. Absolutely. Okay, and now I'm going to press submit. Please let me not be the only one. All right, we have 3. We're doing much better than the last time. I think the quality of the learning environment's an interesting one because you can have a really good school in an environment that may not have every resource in the world. And you can walk into, I live in Dubai, you can walk into some very slick schools and not see the best care, guidance, or safety, for example.
I also just want to emphasize how tools like Menti can be easily used as OEQA evaluators giving workshops to schools or within the districts, and also for schools using them for their school-based staff. It's easy to use once you get the hang of it.
Yeah, it's the getting the hang of it part. And then also knowing that you will not be let off the hook, as we say, because we have this little magic number down here that lets us know how many people have participated. Now, one of my flaws, though, I will say when I'm using something like Menti is I have a tendency to talk out of nervousness while I'm waiting for results to come in. So sometimes.
So I wonder how we can plan for that. So just recognizing also that if we as facilitators feel this way, imagine how our teachers or the school leaders feel about it. I think one of the most important things, takeaways from these types of workshops is putting yourselves in the shoes of those you're expecting to deliver this to. So you know that it's not always so easy for others to do it also, you know. Wow,
Absolutely.
We've jumped to 12. Good job.
So,
and then another thing that I want the participants to notice is the way Ms. Christine is talking through and encouraging people to join as, you know, as she's waiting. Another thing that's also quite important is to plan for it also. Okay, so one thing that Ms. Christine has done is she has created like a run sheet. So she has accounted for the time that we are supposed to use for each individual slide to ensure that we don't go over time, although I have taken her away from that. So a good way to do that, I like to use my phone as a timer. You don't need to buy a timer, but you can, if you're walking through the presentation, you can say, plus, since this is an interactive slide, that maybe you will give your participants 3 minutes or 4 minutes, and then you move on. So they also know the pressure is on them to get the work done within that specific period of time. Absolutely. So if you notice, I'm just giving commentary.
Okay, so I'm gonna move to the next slide in just a second. So if you are rating the importance, you're out in the middle of it, you will lose the opportunity to do that as soon as I move to the next slide. So count backwards in your head from 10, and then we'll move on. In some ways, this is a little bit of an easy task because you saw what I did. I just went straight through and I was like 4s and 5s because of course we want everything. But what I want you to do now, so keep this in mind, even if you didn't do this task, what's most important for you, okay, for achieving your vision? Because now we're going to look at areas for development. This is your school's proficiency. So now you're going to rank, and this is what I had mentioned before, what it is you think you do best. And it might align to what's most important. Oh, 17, look at that, DG. Rocking and rolling. It might align to what you think is most important for your vision, but then it might not, right? And those are gaps that are really, really helpful to work through. So again, here, if I were to rank, and I have a school where I'm on the board just in mind, thinking about what it is that they do best. For them, it's learners' personal skills and participation, quality of leadership and management. No one's going to hold you to this. It's completely anonymous. Quality of teaching and learning. Quality of curriculum. You can see it's actually my own children go to a new-ish school. Oops, I just said which school it is, sort of on the board of theirs. But I would say they do care, guidance, and safety next. Quality of the learning environment. Achievement and standards. And I say that only because they're a newer school. It takes time to really get to high outcomes in the end. So that was just an example of me answering that. Good, we have a few people, 2 people. Let's see what's happening in the chat. Now, sometimes people use the chat instead of using the Menti. We love it when you use the Menti, and that's because it gives us a record. It gives you a record. We can go back to it another time and say, what was it that people felt they did well? And we'll all give you a couple of minutes to do this. Now I am going to mute myself for like a minute to make sure that everyone gets in there and has a chance to do the Menti. Look at all of you with the Menti now, so impressive. These are super interesting results, actually. Just given that in the first Menti, You all said that you would need to prioritize safety right now. And yet, from a proficiency standpoint, you've sort of self-evaluated that a little bit on the lower side. And that could be because it's an area for development still. Sorry, DG.
I was saying that's interesting, the difference between the two. And this is another reason why I also like Menti, because there may be things that we think we know, and we realize when people are giving us the feedback instantly, we realize something different. And the thing to think about is, how can this now impact what your next steps are? So what your next steps are as an evaluator, what your next steps are as a school leader. Okay, if you have access to instant feedback like this.
Definitely. Now, I'm going to leave this up and we will come back to it so that you have a chance to, hold on, let me see here. Yeah. So that you have a chance to add your thoughts to this. Okay, because this is a little bit of a hands-on activity, right? I want you to think about a little bit of math here. Now, the way you might go about doing this, because
okay, again, sorry, I did mention that everyone should have their pen and paper. Maybe this is where you could use it.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Pen and paper out. Hold on. I was about to turn my video on here. Your pen and paper. This is a little bit more of what I would call like a back of the envelope exercise. You know, no one's going to hold you to this, but it's an opportunity to think about how you prioritize in that school development planning. So we've got the standards and substandards. And I want you to think about, if you were to self-evaluate, right, where would you put yourself there? Fair or acceptable, good, outstanding, or weak, you know, poor. There might be an area where you feel you are. And I've listed out, again, this is sort of an imaginary school, what an imaginary school might put for their own self-evaluation. After you do that, give yourself a ranking as to how important this standard is based on your vision. So for example, if your vision is about student outcomes and getting into the right university, then achievement and standards would probably be at the highest point for meeting your vision. If it's more whole child development, it might be that that importance is a little bit lower for achievement and standards, but maybe a 3, right? And maybe a 5 then for personal skills and participation. Now, here's where the math is going to get a little bit tricky. Work with me here. Rank then your weakness. If this is an area where you need to develop and you know you need to do, whether it's important or not, you're going to put the weakness column as like a 5. Okay. If it's an area where you're really strong, you're going to put it as a 1. Now that's the opposite of what we normally do, right? We normally give ourselves more points if it's a strength, but there's a little calculation that you're going to do here to see where it is that you need to develop. So take a moment to do that. DG, you could even be doing it thinking about the school that you went to, maybe a school where you're on the board, one of your children's schools. It's all confidential. You're just doing it on your paper.
I actually wanted to also ask a question.
Yes, please.
So, you know, for the weakness, 5 is the most weak and
Yes.
1 is strong or least weak. But for the importance, 5, is it also the most important?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So the higher the number, the higher the ranking in that particular component. So if
Yes.
5 is important, if 5 is under importance, 5 is the most important. If 5 is under weakness, 5 is the most weak.
Yes, exactly,
Okay.
DJ.
Okay, so I have to put away my English hat and put on my
Yes.
math
Put
hat.
on math hat.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, I've got it. Okay, thank
Anyone
you.
who knows me knows I am I'm still somebody who carries the one when I'm doing my math. New math is not my strong suit. But if you do this, we're actually going to be able to have a sort of quantitative way of figuring out what you might prioritize in that school development plan. So I'm just going to talk you through this one, okay? Our imaginary school has set for 1A, their importance as 5, but their weakness is a 3. So they're kind of right in the middle there. You multiply importance times weakness. This is a great activity, by the way, to do with your board if you have a really supportive board. And then you get a number. So in this case, importance is 5.
You mean with the board of directors of the school, the board of trustees?
Yes. If you have a supportive board and a good relationship with the board, or you could do it with your school leadership team. You should, yes.
Yes.
Of course. Because what you see and what somebody else sees might not always be exactly the same thing. So then we can look at the next one, right? This is learners' personal skills and participation. Imaginary school has ranked it as a 5, but it's pretty strong. So its weakness is only a 2. You multiply those numbers to get sort of this weakness or risk number, right? Which is the importance times the weakness. Again, if we look at the quality of teaching and learning, rated as a 5, weakness as a 3, when you multiply them together, you get a 15. So if you look at this, what does the school most need to develop? You can pop it into the chat. What is the risk? What is the school most at risk for? What is it that they need to develop more than anything?
Okay, we need answers. We're still getting introductions, but we need answers. 157 people?
158?
158. I can call on you. I know your names.
We could do that. Would you like to? Oh, we just lost 2 people.
Oh.
That's because you threatened to call on people, DJ. All right, I think some people might be answering in the chat.
So we'll wait.
Will we? Okay, we'll wait.
I would, this is quite interesting because for me, I would like to see the relationship between the risk number and the self-evaluation. Someone said that 2C needs to be, this is Olua, I can't click on the person's name. I wanted to give the person a shout out.
I see 2C.
Maybe Oluwabumi, I don't know. Let me go and check in the participants.
I see Fajobi Amos wrote 2C. Care guidance and safety. Yes, so that is Suleiman Ogunmuyiwa. Sorry.
We have a safe, I want to mention something. There's a safe environment in this Zoom call for pronunciations. So Christine can say names without it being proper and we won't laugh, we will encourage.
Oh, you can laugh, it's okay.
No, I'm trying to model what we should be even expecting of our teachers in the classroom when maybe there's someone that's, has an answer that's different than others.
Or a pronunciation in my case.
Or pronunciation in your case, yes.
Thank you for your patience with me. I appreciate it. So congratulations to those of you who said 2C.
Yay!
Now, yay!
Is there a way to give a smiley face in the chat box?
Do you know what? I
Yes,
don't
yes.
know on this. Can you do
Yes,
it?
I can give a heart eyes. I can give a heart eyes.
Okay, fabulous.
I've done that. I've given a thumbs up on the Zoom call.
Now,
Okay.
this is, think of this, I guess, like, you know, you've done your self-evaluation, you know what you're good at, you know what you're not good at. You can't do everything all at once.
Exactly.
So the importance helps you know, and that importance is determined by your vision, where it is that you need to focus your school development plan. So if I'm the proprietor or the principal at Imaginary School, I'm going to focus in on 2C, 2A, probably the quality of teaching and learning, and then 1A, achievement and standards. Some of the other things, our leadership is already good, fantastic. Quality of the curriculum and other activities, that's fine. So even though they're important, they're pretty strong. I don't need to focus too much there at this stage. So that was your math exercise for the day. So we'll skip through that. So how do you then create targets? I'm going to just check how we're doing at time, because of course, even though we had a run sheet, we stretched it a bit. But let's look at this. So you all know SMART targets, right? Succinct, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound.
You want me to go through this slide, Christine?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Please.
No, I just want to, I know we're not keeping to the, I'm not keeping to the run sheet as I should, but at least we can mix it up a bit. Okay.
Sure.
So we should be focusing on setting a target for each priority for the end of the academic year. And Ms. Christine was talking about the SMART goals. And I believe that stands for, what is the S for again? It's the previous. Succinct. So that means not very long, something that's succinct to the point. And then M is measurable, right? So are we using percentages? Are we using some sort of scale? A is achievable. Is it realistic? No, is that the same as?
Yes.
Okay,
realistic is the R in SMART.
Realistic is the R. Okay, so is it achievable? Is it something that we can actually achieve at this time? Okay, with what we have and what we expect to have. Is it actually achievable? Is it realistic? And I believe the T is time bound, right? So can we do this within a certain time bound? So like I mentioned, and also this slide also states is that schools have a variety of budgets and access to different level points. So you need to consider where your school is as you prioritize. And I actually like how we're able to put that in a mathematical equation, because it makes it very glaring. It makes it very glaring that this is where our focus should be. So an example for the teaching and learning, for instance, is the rationale for improvement. So why is improvement needed particularly is because 40% of the lessons observed are rated poor or very poor. Okay, so how are we going to target the improvement, or how are we going to create a standard to target the improvement? So we'll say we're going to decrease the percentage of poor or very poor lessons to 25%. Ms. Christine, I don't think this is an example of a very good SMART goal.
It's not.
Okay, good.
Here's the analysis.
Go ahead.
No, you.
Okay. Okay, so the previous one was decrease it from 40 to 25. So this is, now let's look at how this one is written. Decrease percentage of poor or very poor lessons from 40% to 25%. It may seem like a good target, but is it SMART? SMART stands for succinct, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. So is the target succinct? Yes, right? Because it's just one sentence. It's not very long. You don't have to do a research paper on it. Is it measurable? Okay, yes, because we've provided that, and this provided that the school uses regular graded observations. So if we're talking about the way in which teachers are observed, and we want to decrease it, that means that you're still keeping up with that many lesson observations. So which means if you observed 100 lessons last year, you have to keep about that amount or more, right? It has to be about on this in the same range. You can't do 5 observations and think that that it's measurable, because you're not comparing apples to apples, right? Is it achievable? Okay, maybe, maybe not. This would depend on the challenges related to the teaching and learning and the interventions that are planned, not just planned, but executed, okay? So is it just going to happen by magic, or are we going to have a plan for our teachers where they're going to undergo some type of coaching, mentorship, you know? Then is it realistic? Again, maybe. The school needs to reflect on the success of past change initiatives. So if you said the same thing last year and nothing has happened, or if you have been saying the same thing in the past 3 years, we're going to improve by X amount, and then nothing really has changed. Are we being realistic about where we are and our capacity to impact change? Okay. And is it time bound? No. Is it time bound? No. Before we move on to the next slide, I want someone to, in the chat box, to attempt to create a SMART goal. So we know that this target has the S and the M. The other 3 need work. So how can this SMART goal be achievable? How can it be more realistic? And how can it be time bound? I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Just quickly. So we don't need the first part, but those last 3. Achievable, how can this be made more achievable, more realistic, and more time bound? Oh, we don't have much time.
We're struggling with time bound. That is okay though, because adapting is the name of the game.
It sure is. Okay, so a few more seconds. I haven't seen any. Do I start calling on people? How do we make this more achievable, more realistic, or more time bound? Taiwo, Olaniyan, Beckley, Oluwatoyin. Oh, someone else. Adequate planning and training of staff. That's what Anima Chadiat has said. What specifically about the planning though? Okay, someone has talked about the importance of the SMART goal, but how do we make this particular one more smart? How do we make it more achievable? How do we make it more realistic? And how do we make it more time bound? Beckley? Someone said plan ahead. Warm, not quite there. Okay, let's move on.
Okay, spoiler alert. Wait, hold on. Okay, so this is an example of just making it time bound, right? We want this to happen by June 2021. And by virtue of that, it's probably a little more realistic too than if we had said, well, of course, we passed June 2021. But in general, we'll pretend that says June 2022.
Someone said regular training. So what does regular mean? Are we saying weekly? Are we saying monthly? Are we saying quarterly? Right? We need to be a little bit more specific about that also. You can go ahead, please.
So creating an action plan, right? We know what the what is. We want to reduce the percentage of poor or very poor lessons, but the action plan is the how. And I want to highlight the participant who said regular training. Well, that's a really good idea, right? Having regular training. But as the DG said, what do we really mean by that? What makes sense in your context? You know, if you're at a school with a large budget, you may be able to hire an instructional coach to support your teachers. But if you're at a school with a small budget, you might need to think about looking for free training opportunities that are aligned to teaching and learning, since that's your top priority. We're not going to go through this full slide now, but what we've done is taken a number of different research-based reports on school improvement across price points. So what might different improvement initiatives look like going from good to outstanding or fair to good? Because even if you're amazing, you can still be more amazing, right? You may be an outstanding school, and that's great. And you can be an outstanding low-cost or public school, an outstanding mid-tier school, or an outstanding high-cost premium international school. Any type of school can be outstanding. How do you go from, you know, outstanding to even more outstanding, or good to outstanding, fair to good? And so from quite a number of different research reports, we put in recommendations at these different fee points. So you might be at a high cost school, for example, if you're moving from poor outcomes, you might supplement curriculum with artificial intelligence or adaptive resources online. Other schools may not be able to support that, but they may be able to use scripted curricula and target the use of that curricula to assessment data, for example. So this will be available for you to reference, again, on Legos Learns Together.
Again, can we just go back there 1 second? I just
Yes.
wanted to mention to the participants that this is just a framework. So as the OEQA, when we go to a high tier school and when we go to a low cost school, it is possible for a high tier school to be rated very poor. And it is possible for a low-cost school to be rated outstanding. We're not expecting to see the same exact things, but we're expected to see a certain level of standardization for where the school is. And that's why I really, really like this particular framework.
Oops, you're on mute.
Okay, sorry. Sometimes we're accustomed to saying good or great in only one lens. So this sort of opens up our mind and trains our mind to really be observant about each of the different tiers of schools. And I'm realizing as I'm looking at it that we will make it larger, the font larger, and we'll make it darker so that you can see it better. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so we have then used those recommendations to go back to our targets. DG, I'll turn that over to you.
Okay, so Ms. Christine had talked about how we can make that SMART goal more time bound. So we put a time there by June 2021. So a school can say by the end of 2022, by the end of second term, whatever it is, by the end of 5 years, okay? It has to be time bound. Now, what research-based, that doesn't mean we have to go about doing research. A lot of the things that we know to work are research-based, and we may not even know. We just know that those things work. But it's good to focus in on research-based so that in the event where we have not seen certain interventions, we know to look out for research-based interventions, right? So what research-based interventions could help a mid-cost school? So this is where that framework is coming into play. A mid-cost school improve the quality of teaching and learning. So one could be the use of technology for personalization. So how can we leverage technology to get to more in less time? how can we unbundle the role of the teacher and figure out the different strengths that our teachers have, and how can we use them? How can we build on top of them? So number one, do we have a system where we can identify best practices in teaching and learning? Could it be that we're just doing a survey amongst our staff or even amongst our students about whose classes they enjoy the most and why? Very simple. Okay, or are we going to use like maybe a simple a score, either from their lesson observations or from some sort of a test, or whether or not they have a master's, whatever it is, how are we going to identify best practices? Another one is how can we assign best teachers as mentors to struggling teachers? Typically speaking, teachers that are in their initial years are not as great as teachers that have been teaching for a long time, but that is not always the case. Sometimes you'll find a first-year teacher who just blows everything out of the water, right? So how are we able to identify who can be a mentor, and how can we give some sort of terms of reference for what that relationship could be? So even if you have like 2 or 3 struggling teachers in your school, how can you support them with the teachers that are already on ground that are doing a great job? Not only doing a great job, but have shown that they're good at helping others also. Next slide. Can we go to the next slide?
Yes, it should be on it.
Okay.
So,
okay.
DJ, I think, why don't you take this one?
Yes, okay. So how can we fix it even more? Okay, reduce poor and very poor lesson plans from 40% to 25% by June 2021 through instructional coaching and mentorship and the use of technology to personalize learning. Wow, that is power-packed. Okay, look at the difference here. We already know what the school needs to do. The school knows what they need to do. So then they can break up their activities based on these things that are in this one statement. Okay, next slide. Now what do we do? Okay, we've done the SMART goal. What do we do? Okay, so like I said, the SMART goal will really help you to hone in on where you need to focus your resources and where you and how you are going to evaluate how far you've gone and mark your progress. Okay, we can't just say, oh, we're going to improve. No, we need a plan, and we need a plan with some milestones. Okay, so based on that SMART goal, look at action number 1. Establish instructional coaching and mentorship. Who is it going to be delegated to? Mr. Balogun. Okay, so we're not just saying, oh, it's just going to happen. Who will take ownership? Who are we going to empower with that responsibility? And what does that mean? How are we going to support that person? How are we going to train that person? How are we going to maybe give that person extra time for planning within the school day? Are we going to give that person some sort of stipend, okay, or an additional title like instructional coach or something, even if we can't give them more money? Okay, I know Christine is leaving soon. Let me just okay, so I want us all to just thank Miss Christine. She's about to leave. She's right on time to leave as we spill over. Miss Christine, this has been a very great session. Thank you for all of your contributions on today's session. So if anyone has anything to say, Miss Christine, you can say it now, or we get the information to her later.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure. What I will do, DG, is I will, just so she has it at hand, I will WhatsApp the slides to Ms. Fauzia so that she can share them.
Okay.
And run the presentation. Thank you so much, everyone. It was such a pleasure to be here with you. And I apologize that we didn't get to chat a bit more as we went through this, but it is one of my favorite topics, and would love to support you more with it. Thanks, everyone. I'll stop my share and swap over the presentation to Ms. Fauzia. Thank you, DG.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're almost over. I know, where's the presentation? Oh, I think Ms. Christine was sharing the presentation. So we would need Ms. Fauzia to share that presentation. Just give us a moment, please. We may have to run through also because we promised you that we would be finishing at 11:30 and it's already 11:29. So I'm just going to run through some of the slides as we go through, but I don't want to talk through them until the slide is being reflected. Thank you. Can we put this in presentation mode? Keep going. Keep going. Now, if we can make it larger also. Yes, here. Next slide. Next slide. Yes. Can we make this larger?
I have zoomed it in. I'm on slideshow.
Okay. I don't know why it's smaller here than what I was seeing before. Let me see. Same thing. Okay, it's the same thing. Okay, we'll make do with what we have. Please go to the next slide. No, the one with the chart with Mr. Balogun. Go back.
After, let's jump back.
It says it's a slide with a table that I was talking through.
Action that.
Go back. You've gone too.
Okay.
You've gone too far. Yes,
okay.
This is it. Yes. Okay. So from that SMART goal, we've been able to hone in on the action. Everything that is mentioned in the SMART goal has an action. Who is it going to be delegated to? Number one, sometimes it can be delegated to a team lead with an actual team, and those team members could also be mentioned on who it's going to be delegated to. And then you're going to give them some milestones that are also SMART. Okay, those milestones will also be time bound, they'll also be specific, they'll also be SMART goals. So like minor SMART goals, right? Or micro SMART goals. Okay, so for instance, establish instructional coaching and mentorship. Milestone number one is identify top teaching practitioners and enroll in instructional coaching training by October 1st. Okay, so let's pretend that the SMART goal said June 2022. So this is milestone number one. Milestone number two, set schedule to ensure all poor and very poor rated teachers receive coaching 2 times per month by October 15th. Notice this milestone has a time bound, but it requires other sets of activities. So they have to gather the information of those teachers that are poor, very poor. They have to look at the school calendar, the schedule, right? Then they need to arrange how the teachers will be getting coaching 2 times a month, okay? And who they will assign them to. Number 3, analyze teacher performance records to determine progress and impact by December 1st, March 15, and June 1st, okay? So this is just one example. Next slide. So going into the capacity building. This has spilled over, but I will try my best to keep it in the next between 10 and 15 minutes so you can go. We've gone 3 minutes over time now. Determine what capabilities you will require to reach your goal. Okay, capability building can include improving the facilities, infrastructure, resources, and people. You have to think about what you are actually able to do now. And that is why the SMART goal is important, right? Because you can't set a time goal for June 2022, and then the capabilities you require need building of additional 5 blocks of classroom. That will not be done by next year, okay? And this is also important for our OEQ evaluators as we prefer solutions to what the recommendations when we write our reports, okay? So we need to think about what government is also able to do given existent resources. And for school leaders, what your school is able to do given existent resources, okay? Ensure that your top improvement priorities are reflected while budgeting and planning for facilities, infrastructure upgrades. However, schools can support teacher development throughout the year. How can schools do that, okay? Next slide. So we're going back to our imaginary school. What people capabilities would they require to meet their SMART target? I want you to think about that. Based on this SMART target, what people capabilities would they require to meet the STAR target? Now, look at the SMART goal. Reduce poor and very poor lessons from 40% to 25%. By June 2022, it should be through instructional coaching and mentorship and the use of technology to personalize learning. So I'm going to give us about a minute to quickly talk about what people capabilities would they require to meet their SMART target. Are we going to now force, will you force me to go and start calling names again? Think about it. We talked about mentoring. So we need people that actually know how to mentor in the instructional coaching. But what about use of technology to personalize learning? What is needed? What people capabilities are needed? Think about what the administration needs to know how to do in terms of technology use. Okay, so we've mentioned instructional coaching, digital teaching and learning. Obviously, you need to know the teaching standards. Okay, what about Lamlat Adejobi? Lamlat Adejobi. Okay, yes, you've mentioned capacity building for teachers. Yes, I agree. That's Bisola Joke. Yes. Lamlat. And Taufik Ajibade. Taufik Ajibade. Someone said Beckley Oluwatoyin, improve the quality and standard of the curriculum. Okay, how though? This is the thing, is how. That's quite broad and it's true, but how? Remember, it needs to be specific. Okay. The people I called on have not put in anything in the chat. Oluwabumi Awe says the school should get mentors for the teachers, encourage them to acquire knowledge online. Great. So that even assumes that they know how to do that. So we'll make the assumption that the school has even taught the mentors, that have made provision for the mentors for training, maybe help them how to use their devices. Okay, those two people I called still have not said anything, but I have Fumilola Bamishebi, I think. Someone said provision of technology tools. Absolutely. Who do I hear me say? Absolutely. Okay, great. Readiness to learn. Okay, the mind thing. And someone also said improve on teaching strategies. Okay, these are all great. Even though the two people I called on did not mention anything. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, so there are so many things online. Okay, so Lagos Learns Together is obviously one source. There's Coursera, and then even Microsoft offers different capability development programs. So gone are the days where you must take your teachers abroad to, you know, have them learn. You can actually assign someone to look based on what your school needs are, to look out for specific courses that your staff need to take. Okay, and these are free ones. There are many ones that are paid for and that are worth it also, but at least this is a start if you want to find some that are free of charge. Next slide. Okay, so we're going to go into writing the plan. Next slide. Okay, so with your focus areas, we have targets, and we have capability development plan set. Now, how do we write the school development plan? So as I've mentioned before, some of you already know, I have a background in teaching of English. And anytime I had to have my students write, I never tell them to just write like that. Even though I used to teach much older students, I would always encourage them to use graphic organizers or create their own graphic organizers on their exam sheets. Because if you know what a graphic organizer is and the components of a graphic organizer, you are planning the different parts of what you would then join together to make your essay. Same thing with this plan. We've written our focus areas. We know what our targets are. We've thought about our capability development plans. Now we have to bring everything together for a school development plan. Okay, if you just write it without thinking of these things, something will fall. So it's important to think of all of these components, think through it, talk through it with your team, and then bring it together so that it is bulletproof. Okay, so it's also important to use the forms that are provided, and then you send it to the external evaluator, being OEQA. Some schools are already able to add their development plans to the OEQA automation platform. So what we are doing now as an office is we're planning towards automation. We recognize that if we want all of our schools to be able to adhere to the standards we've set for them, we're expecting them to improve from one point to the next. In order to be able to monitor that progress, there's no way we'll be able to do that without the use of technology. So what we're doing now is we're planning for an OEQA automation platform. And as we speak to you now, we have about 10 to 12 schools that are actually a part of the pilot for the automation platform, where they're learning how to upload some evidences that will be used for their evaluation, and how they'll be able to use that self-evaluation, have access to external evaluation, so that they can make better decisions in real time at their schools. Next slide. So how are we able to monitor progress, right? As a senior leadership team, determine how you will engage in progress monitoring. So OEQA will come to your school, at least for whole school evaluation. We do that once every 3 years, but so much would have happened within that 3 years, right? And in schools that need us more, we go to other schools more often, some even as much as on a monthly basis, right? But even at that, you need to take ownership over the progress of your school, and how are you able to monitor that that progress. Okay, so Will you review evidence online? How frequently will you be able to meet as a team? Thank God for technology now. On a normal day, we would be in a big hall and everyone will be there presently. But thanks to technology, you are actually able to meet your team more frequently by getting on Zoom or WhatsApp video or Microsoft Teams to be able to meet. Okay, so how frequently will you be able to meet depending on the needs of your school and the resources that are available to you? Then how will you support team members who are struggling with their assigned programs? You know, I often say that we are as strong as our weakest link. So how do we bring those that are struggling? How do we bring them up? How do we support them? Could it be that maybe they're not the best person for that particular thing at this time? Do they need a coach? Do we need to give them lesson plans or mentoring plans to work with their mentees? Okay, it's very important to think through how you can support those you are assigned to support. Same thing with us also with OEQA, thinking through how we can support our school leaders, right? So something like this, training that we're giving today is going to be made available to everyone, right? It's going to be made available. The videos are there. You can tweak it. You can change the format. You can do anything. But we realize that, you know what? Some people actually need this. They need these resources so they can use it for their schools. So how are you in turn also going to do that with those in your school? Next slide. Okay, so I'm not going to go through so many. This is just a case study of a school improvement plan during the time of COVID. We know that research has shown that in-school learning is more impactful and effective than online learning. But even at that, the issue we have is we want students to continuously still learn. So how have you planned, even though there's COVID, and then we know that some schools may actually have confirmed cases of COVID in their schools? How do you plan towards that for school improvement during this time so that your students are not behind? Okay, so so Agnes is the principal of a mid-sized UK curriculum school. COVID struck just as our team was preparing for their UK accreditation. It was critical that their school improvement initiatives not lose momentum. Agnes developed a school-wide improvement plan with 3 main goals: vertical curriculum alignment, ensuring students progress from year to year. So she wanted to make sure that the students were stable. In essence, that's what that means. That there was accurate assessment. So maybe this would be done more frequently, or maybe it would be also done more informally also to support the formal assessment. And then improve literacy. Okay, literacy with reading and writing. Okay, next slide. So when her team were in school, Agnes met with them one-on-one and as a group each month. Okay, we don't know what the frequency of that was. Once online, she shifted these to digital meetings. Okay, so she didn't say, oh, we can't meet physically. No, said, okay, let's do digital meeting. In addition to the meetings, she asked her program leaders, sent her a monthly project, key performance indicator report update with evidence attached. So they won't just say, oh, we've done this. Where is the evidence you have done that? Okay, the next slide provides an example of a KPI updates template. So look at what the dashboard may look like. So number 1, weekly review of the pacing guide. Pacing guide is similar to the running sheet that myself and Christine have used during this training. Okay, so where I guess it would also be similar to the schemes of work, right? What they're supposed to be doing on a weekly basis. So how is it being reviewed? Impact to be updated on 1st of March. Look at the time frame. Use of assessment reports on Atlas. That is a software to plan instructions and assessments. Okay, so the rationale is to identify and address learning loss, weekly update. I like the status because they can say where they are. So they are just in the planning stage, which means that they're even maybe just still talking about it, but at least the principal knows where they are. So if she sees that everyone is in planning stage, maybe she needs to support them and make sure they're making due process to move on to the next stage. Okay, next slide. So this one, we're not going to go through this one. So just move through this case study. All right, so these are just questions you can think about. What can be learned from the school improvement journey of Agnes and her team? What things can you take away? What things have you maybe already been doing? Many schools have been doing wonderful things during this time of COVID. Public school, private schools, high-ranking school, low-tier schools. Okay, what can be learned? What might work in your own context? This is very important. What may you need to adapt? Some people don't have access to dashboards. Could it be a notebook? Could it be where people are signing in from time to time? What processes would you need to begin to have a collaborative, streamlined school development process? So even if you're nowhere near this, right? At least, what do you need to begin? Where can you start from? Okay, those are questions to reflect upon. Next slide. Okay, so in conclusion, a good school development plan can be both the roadmap and engine to drive your school forward. Okay, let me read that one more time. A good school development plan can be, I would say even should be, I would even write that should be, both the roadmap, how are we going to get to where we're going, and it is also the engine to drive your school forward. It is a critical component of the quality assurance process, ensuring that both the self-evaluation and external evaluation lead to better schools and, of course, better learning outcomes for students. Thank you. So we've gone over time, and I want to thank you all for attending today's training. I think we capped at about 158, and it's good for the first one. I want to let you know that the Office of Education Quality Assurance is focused and determined to make sure that we are helping you to improve schools using standardization, monitoring, and evaluation. I want you to be on the lookout for our upcoming workshop series in this professional development series that we have for OEQA evaluators, as well as for school leaders who will be taking their schools through this process. Okay, so there are different topics that we're going to take that are cemented in federal government guidelines. I mean, not federal government guidelines, a federal government quality assurance handbook. And we as an office, we're even working on the final touches on a supplemental guide that even brings the federal government handbook into better fruition. Okay, we realize that there are many general things within the federal government handbook that needed to be more specific so that you can use them. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that it's not just a handbook, but it's something you can actually use. So we're putting the final touches on that, and that is where all of our professional development series workshops are actually cemented in that. I don't have the name of the next one that's coming up, but what we will do is we'll make sure that we get that out on a timely manner. I want to thank you everyone for all of my OEQ evaluators on the line, our school leaders, and just people that just love knowledge. Thank you all for attending this workshop today, and we're hoping for great feedback. Make sure that you reach out to us at info@oeqalagos.com. and ensure that you, during this time of COVID, that you are keeping to COVID-19 protocols within your schools, and that you are following all the things that are needed to ensure that even if there's a case of COVID on your school, you know exactly what to do. Our website, oeqalagos.com, has all of our major documents. So we have online, we'll have, I think, online today. We have an old version from last year, how to manage COVID-19 in school, in all educational institutions. We have a document, and it has recently been updated in conjunction of the OEQA, in conjunction with Ministry of Health and Lagos State Safety Commission. We've put in all of, and also Office of the Special Advisor on Education for tertiary institutions as well. So that will be on the website. By the end of today, it is already done, but we have the old one there from last year. We also have federal government guideline, federal government, I'm sorry, I keep saying guideline, federal government handbook for quality assurance is also online that you can download. We look forward to hosting you again. So without further ado, I will check out after your patience. We've been here about 20 minutes over, and we'll keep to time better next time. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you so much, ma. Thank you, the participants. I don't know if you can indulge me to call on Mr. Remy Abdul to give the vote of thanks on behalf of all the participants, ma. Mr. Remy Abdul, please unmute.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to answer the question. Someone said, what does KPI mean?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so key project indicators, right? So key project indicators. I believe that's what it is. The K is key. Okay, please go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Abdul, sir, please unmute yourself and give the vote of thanks, sir. Minutes.
Okay, it's actually key performance indicators, sorry. Key performance indicators. If you can please make sure you put that in the chat. Fauzia, please. Okay. Or in the QA.
Good morning, the DG, the directors in the house, and every other evaluators at this program. I want to thank you for your patience and for all that you have contributed to the success of this program this morning. I want to believe that all we have learned today will be deployed to the improvement of evaluation in our schools, especially when it comes to this planning, development planning in our schools. So I want to wish you all the best. And when next we meet to discuss these issues of this nature, I want to believe that it will continue to improve our performance. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.
Thank you. Okay, God bless you all. Thank you, and see you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a nice day.